forsake not the fellowship with the saints, and to be like the Bereans and to study the scriptures for yourselves. And Father, we are here tonight to do that. We are reading the book by John Maxwell, which is based on scripture, talking about teamwork and working together. And Father, we pray tonight that we come together on one accord to learn and to be helpful. We enter your presence with an open mind so that we can learn more, be more, do more, and have more on the planet. Father, as we go into your word through the book of John Maxwell, show us in our lives where we can be better. And help us be open to learning more, not defending our current position. These things we ask in the name of your Son, Jesus the Christ. Amen. 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 Does anyone have a testimonial you'd like to share this evening? Some way that God has blessed you and you're just excited and you want to share that with other people. Not only does it encourage you, it can encourage others.
I want to share something that God has revealed to me. And I just want to thank God that he's been knowing me all my life before I knew him. And I've never been in poverty. I've been in a point to where I had just enough. But I don't believe too many of us really understand what poverty is. But, but I've had more than enough for over 15, 20 years. And I just thank God for revealing it to me like there was a reason for that. His people was in poverty, but I'm not going to say anything else. God just revealed something to me, and I'm just thankful the way I am all my life and for the future. Thank God.
My man said he'd never been in poverty. That's all right right there. That's a testimony. Not all of us have that same testimony. Anyone else have a testimony you like to share? Some other way God has blessed you and you like to share that with other people. Going once, going twice, 3 times. The service is now passed over to Pastor Bo.
In 1935, 21-year-old Tenzing Norgay made his first trip to Mount Everest. He worked as a porter for a British team of mountaineers. A surfer born in the high altitudes of Nepal, Tenzing had been drawn to the mountain from the time that Westerners began visiting the area, which is the idea of climbing to the mountain's peak. The first group had come in 1920. 15 years later, climbers were still trying to figure out how to conquer the mountain. The furthest this expedition would go was up to the North Col, which was at an altitude of 22,000 feet. A col is a flat area along a mountain's ridge between peaks, and it was just below that col that the climbing party made a gruesome discovery. They came across a wind-shredded tent, and that tent was a skeleton with a little frozen skin stretched over the bones. It was sitting in an odd position with one boot off and the laces of the other boot between its bony fingers.
So now he set the stage by letting us know, that Mount Everest is not your average mountain. Mount Everest is the highest peak in the world, and you can't attack it with an average mentality. You can't attack it with an average team. And so this young Sherpa, now you got to understand, it's important for you to understand when you get to the end of the story where he started. Now he was a Sherpa, and normally the experience what they call mountaineers came, and they only used the Sherpas for labor. They didn't use them to think. They never asked them questions how to do this. All they used them for was to carry the stuff up. They were called, sometimes they would call them porters. They carried the supplies. They blazed the trail. They did all the manual labor. Because I'm pretty sure people just thought they were smart enough to be mountaineers. And so he had gone up on this expedition, and he learned each time he went up. And we're going to find out that he went up to the mountain 7 times. And each time it looked like he learned up. And for those of us who maybe even y'all don't even know, I would equate a Sherpa to, in our day, what they were called Pullman porters. If you used to ride the train in the day, there were certain jobs that people thought that you weren't qualified to do if you didn't have brain power, so you could only handle people bags. Take care, their porters, get their bags. But some of those guys were Pullman porters now. They learned more than just how to handle bags. They understood how the whole train system worked. And so I'm pretty sure they went from handling bags to understanding what the conductor had to do. Because sooner or later, if I watch long enough, I may be able to learn some things that will help me later in life. And so I believe that that's what happened with this guy. Even though he was put in a position, he didn't allow where he started on this journey up this mountain to hinder him from going to the top of the mountain. And each time he went, he learned. And so when he got his opportunity to make some inputs, he already had a strategy to know that, hey, it's going to take a team more than just 1 or 2 people trying to do it by themselves. Okay? So just hold on to that thought. So now let's go on and read, and continue to read The Harshest Place on Earth.
Mountain climbing is not for the faint of heart because the world's highest peaks are some of the most inhospitable places on earth. Of course, that hasn't stopped people from attempting to conquer mountains. In 1786, the first climbers made it to the summit of Europe's highest mountain, Mount Blanc in France. That was quite a feat, but there's a big difference between climbing the highest of the Alps at 15,771 feet and climbing Everest, the world's highest peak, at 29,035 feet, especially in the days before high-tech equipment. Everest is remote, the altitude incapacitates all but the hardness and most experienced climbers, and the weather is ruthlessly unforgiving. Experts believe that the bodies of 120 failed climbers remain on the mountain today. The body Tenzing and the others found in 1935 was that of Maurice Wilson, an Englishman who had sneaked into Tibet and tried to climb the mountain secretly without the permission of the Tibetan government. Because he was trying to make the ascent quietly, he had hired only 3 porters to climb the mountain with him. As they approached the North Col, those men had refused to go any further with him. Wilson decided to try to make the climb on his own. That decision killed him.
Okay, so we can see sometimes when, I'm pretty sure those porters that were with him was trying to tell this guy, hey, we done gone far as we can go with just the 4 of us. If we're going to go any higher, we're going to need more people, we're going to need more supply, we're going to need more than the team that we got. So they decided, hey, we done seen this picture before, we going back. Now you would think that he would listen to some folks who live in that area. I mean, these guys, that's what they were brought up at. But now he's going to try to by himself.
And as a result of that, he died. And so now the question comes, he talks about measure the cost. And measuring the cost is talking about whenever there's a formidable mountain or formidable challenge, you got to sit down and count the cost. So it was 30-some years, 32 years, I think he said, between 1920 and 52, and 7 major expeditions had tried and failed to go up Mount Everest. But Tenson was on 6 of those expeditions, so forth. And so each climb, he learned a little bit more about the mountain, and he learned a little bit more about what it takes to attack and to conquer Mount Everest. And so when you understand his point in the next part, when he talks about it is not a casual stroll, it gives you an idea of how he strategized based upon him going up and down with other folks, the things that they were doing right or the things they was doing wrong, to formulate a plan. If I ever get the chance, I believe I can get this job done. And so the point I want to make there for some of you all, when you're working in a situation and you are not the lead sled dog, you need to learn from other folks' mistakes as well as from their successes, so that when you get an opportunity to be the one to direct the expedition or be in charge of something, you'll have the experience that you need to know what it takes to get the job done. I tell young military people all the time, if you have aspiration and a dream to be a chief, you can't wait till you make master sergeant and start thinking about being a chief, because it's too late. If you want to be a chief, you need to start thinking about that while you're a staff sergeant and a tech sergeant. And you need to surround yourself with other folk who have gone where you're trying to go. See, one of the things that I learned when I made up in my mind that I was going to stay in the military, because at first that wasn't my goal. He talks about dreams, and then we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. When I was coming up, we didn't talk in terminology like, what's your dream? You had to ask me that as a 10-year-old man. What, a dream? So Martin Luther King talked about, I have a dream. What no dream? Folks ask, what you want to be? What you want to be? I guess they were saying, what's your dream? Well, I want to be a football player. I'm pretty good in the hood. I want to be a football player. I'm believing I got dreams enough to get to the NFL. So I'm thinking that, hey, I was good at that in high school and decent coming out of high school my senior year, until I found out when the coach from Alabama said, what position you play? I said, well, I play defensive end, center, and a little nose guard. He said, for that position at our level, we start recruiting at 6'2", 245. You 5'9", and weigh 185. He shattered my dream. You know what I mean? He said, look, you may go play football somewhere, but you ain't going to even get an offer at Alabama. So all them years, I probably should have been dreaming to be a running back and getting faster so that I could be a running back, because running backs start about that time. So now after that, I said, well, what's my next, what I'm going to do next? And, since I can't go to college and play football, I went to Tuskegee, and that's what they told me. You can get a uniform today, but you're going to be a fullback. I said, man, all my life I've been hitting folks. I ain't used to folk hitting me. I play defense or I block, but I hit people. He said, I'm sorry, you're going to have to be a fullback. So the next step was the Air Force. I left the uniform in the locker, went back and told my mom and dad, said, look here, I ain't going to Tuskegee. I guess I'm going to the military, because they told me you're going somewhere. So if that was my dream, it just kind of got changed and shifted. But every time it shifted, I had to make adjustments. And so when I came in the military, the same thing. Someone asked me my dream, I didn't start off wanting to be a chief. I started off being more radical than military. It was only after my first EPR, when the guy that wrote my EPR gave me a 7. And he took me in his office and told me he didn't think nobody coming in as a first termer on their first EPR should get a 9. And I said, I thought I was being rated against other folk in my own group. Not folks who have been in 6, 7 years. That dude gave me a 7. At that time, I decided I would never get another 7 or anything less than a 9. So I started, if that was a dream, I started figuring out, what do you need to do to get a 9? So I was a cop at the time, and I hated that job. But while my buddies was negative, I was starting my fatigue. While it was negative, I was shining my boots. And so while they was telling me, you dumb, why are you going to go out and nobody going to even see you do your job? Nobody. You got doctors and people that work over in the hospital, they get seen by everybody, and their shoes look lousy. And you finna go out here and stand around a bomb dump. You and the prairie dogs, and your shoes gonna be spit shine. Yeah. I'm gonna shine my shoes. And they gonna look good. From that day on, I never got another 7. Got nothing but 9s all the way through. Now, at that time, I still wasn't thinking I was gonna be a chief. I was just wanting to get my first term out the way and go back to college because I thought I was officer material. Dream number 2. I can be an officer. Yeah, but it looked good on paper when they say, you know, we'll let you out. You can go back to school if you already got 2 years or something. I had a CCAF community thing type thing. Until I sit down and count the cost. And Lady Jeanette said, we got 2 babies. And they told you, if you get out, you're not guaranteed you're going to be able to come back in. If anything happened to you while you're in college and your health get this, that, and other, they don't have to let you back in. And I ain't finna go home and stay with your mama now for 2 years. Dream number 3, okay. So I guess I might as well get acclimated to, hey, I'm going to be an enlisted guy, and so I need to shoot for the highest enlisted rank that I can. And so at that time, I started hanging around folk who they call lifers and ate up. When I was young, you know, these are lifers. They ate up. That's all they think, military. Whatever the company say, that's what they do. Whatever the company say, da-da-da. I started hanging with folk like that. When I started hanging with folk like that, I started getting promoted because now those folks taught me how to take a test, what to look for on the test. You know, because some of them have been writing tests. And then I got sent to this tech school where they create all that stuff. And while I was there, I learned other tips. And so because I made up my mind I was going to be a chief, I started hanging around folks and doing things that other folks were turning down. When everybody didn't want to go to leadership school, hey, send me. Don't nobody want to do this duty on the weekend? I'll take it. Give me the FaceTime, give me the whatever I need. And so in 4 years at tech school, I made 2 stripes. I went from going as a staff sergeant, and I left as a master sergeant. 12 years. So that let me know that I got to stop thinking like a sergeant or a staff sergeant if I want to be a chief. I got to start thinking and hanging with people who are going somewhere before I get there. And I got to learn from all those people who have gone on before me. So I had to cut loose some friends to get to that dream of being a chief. Because all my friends didn't see themselves as, they didn't want to be chief. I just gonna do my 20, and if I make myself, I'm happy. Okay, well, that wasn't me. I wanted to be because even colonels respect chiefs. And so what I'm trying to say to you is this. When you start talking about dreams and establishing a team, what some of you much younger than me, and even those of you my age, you know, our dreams may not, you know, the question I would ask those of you my age, do you feel like you fulfilled your dream in life? Or did you do what you think you was put here to do? Or did you do something that when you look back at your life, you'll say, man, I believe I lived a pretty good life. I think I did what God would have me to do. But those of you who are younger, my question would be, what is your dream? I mean, what do you have a desire to do? And if you got a dream, or if you know what you want to do, then the question is going to be, are you putting yourself with the right people to accomplish what you're dreaming about? So anybody want to share that with me? Anybody? Jamie, anybody? Anybody? Okay.
I hear from God. I hear from God the clearest when I'm taking a shower or in a bath, because I'm not doing anything else. So I'm just, me and him. And years ago, I had asked him. I just said, "Listen, God, could you just tell me what my purpose is? And if you could you give it to me in a succinct form? Because if you give me a long paragraph of stuff, I might forget it. So if somebody asks me, I can just tell them what it is." And very clearly, he said, "I have created you to empower and to equip people with the right tools so they can create the lifestyle they desire. And they will call you Mr. Lifestyle." And I got out the shower and I wrote that thing down real fast. And my whole life has been about empowering people, showing them different tools, things they can do to help them live better lives, help them get promotions, help them start their own business, help them enhance their marriage, whatever it is. It's about giving people the tools so they can do what they really want to do. And so I believe that I am fulfilling my purpose, and I'm always looking for other ways to exercise that, but everything I do is about that purpose right there.
Okay, good. Anybody else? Either you live your life and you feel like you've accomplished what God wanted you to accomplish. Anybody else? Dick, you got a mic? Let's get a mic. Amen.
I believe I made a small testimony the other day about what God had put on my life, and this was also put there, just out of my imagination. I know that God gave all of us free will, and God meant for all of us, to make decisions on our own, because that's how we have to be who we are. And so I decided that since everybody has to make their own choice, the best way I can do, instead of coercion or persuasion, is to be an example. And I believe everybody talks about this, when they say that when you raise your children and you need to teach them how to do right from wrong, but you have to be an example also. That they got to look at you and see what you're doing and see if it corresponds with what is right. So live your life so somebody can make a choice that they can see your success, when they can see that you're doing right and it's making a difference. Then that'll be better than trying to coerce them instead of just teaching them. I hope that I got that right.
Amen. Amen. And so I would hope that, I know it may be difficult for you to say if you're already in a career or whatever, but you ought to have aspirations even if you're, whatever you're doing now. Be it that, you work for the state or the city, the government, the military, you ought to have some idea of how you want that career to end. Now, the last part of what I consider, if someone asked me what I want to do, what was life supposed to be like after you got out? After you done accomplished your chief master sergeant status, and now you can't stay in there till you die because they got limits on how long you can stay. And once you hit that limit, you got to get out. So now that you're going to get out, what are you going to do now? Definitely you can't play pro football now when you're too old for that. So now I got out of the military thinking I was going to be one thing, a football coach. That's what I was going to be, because I had coached football in the military over in Germany. I was pretty good at it, and I thought that, hey, when I get back to the States, I'm going to be a high school football coach, and then I'm going to do ministry on the side, because I was a deacon already in training, and then I got licensed. But I never saw myself as a pastor. That wasn't the vision. The vision was to retire, go back and coach high school in Montgomery, Alabama, and go to church at my dad's church. Okay? When I got here, the first thing I started doing was fulfilling that coaching dream. I went down and volunteered at Fort Walton Beach High School back in the days when Ernie Green was down there, and I used to help them coach the JV team. And I was learning the system, and I said, okay, now I just need to go back and get me a teaching certificate. Once I get me a teaching certificate, then I'm going to be a part of a real staff, coaching, and coaching. And I was on my way to that. I mean, I had saw that all the way. And then all of a sudden, strive. Changed the dream. Now, we go from just being a Bible study teacher in the chapel, which I was happy at doing, to now being the pastor of a brand new church with 2 other folks, and then 4 months later, by yourself, because everybody else is gone. I say, this is not the dream. The dream was Montgomery, Alabama, football coach, not Fort Walton Beach church. To fulfill this dream, I don't know, I think all things work together for the good. But at the time, it wasn't received like it was good. Because I turned down an assignment to go to Hawaii to stay here. And that forced me to have to retire before my 30 years. And so now we got this church. Now I'm retired. And now I'm in Florida instead of Alabama. But now I had to psych myself out and say, maybe that is the dream. Being a pastor is like coaching. You know, some of the same issues that I was having with football players, I have with church folk. You know, you have to organize a football team, put people in different positions, call plays, and you know, strategize and study other teams. And all those things happen in the church. And so I guess in a roundabout way, I was fulfilled without planning it, but just kind of like James said, it just happened, and you just play the hand that you're dealt to the best of your ability. But some of you have the opportunity to, at a young age, start with a dream and stay focused on your dream. And I often think of my grandson. I always thought he was going to be a football player, but that's why I always wanted to be an engineer all his life. And I try my best, but, you know, no, you can be both. But he was focused. And so when he gave up an opportunity to play football just to study engineering, it took me a hard time to accept that. Because I'm thinking you can do both. And so I'm trying to change his dream because I said, look here, you know, engineers have to work a long time too, but man, you big enough. All you know, you can live out granddad like you don't need but one contract. You don't need but one signing bonus and one contract, and hey, we'll be good. Granddaddy got the big house, everything's rolling, you'll be good. But that was me trying to tell him to fulfill my dream through him. So right now, he's an engineering student and did not play no football at all. And so I don't know what your dream is. I don't know what your aspiration or what you want to do. But you're going to have to at least see something. And once God shows you something, you're going to have to surround yourself with people that can help you get where you want to go. Jamie?
Years ago, one of my mentors taught me something that always rung true with me. And he says, Jamie, just take action on whatever, because God can't steer a parked car.
Amen.
If you're just sitting still, you're not giving God anything to work with. So as long as you're moving forward, then he'll direct you. He'll tell you, he'll put up detours and he'll block stuff and he'll put things in your path that kind of cause you to go in the direction that you're heading. You reminded me when you were talking about how you got that 7 and that messed you up. It reminded me when I was at Johnson & Johnson, at that time they had a 360-degree feedback system where the highest you could get was a 5. So 5 was like the best. And so my manager brought me in for the review, and he said, listen, I'm giving you a 4. And I'm like, all right, it's like a 80, that's like a B, not too bad. Okay, I was okay with that. But then the next thing he said messed me up. He said, you really deserve a 5, but I give you a 4 because I already gave out all the 5s. So hold on, time out. I'm a 5, but you got to give me a 4 because the other 5, you ran out of 5s? Like, what's that about? He said, well, it's based upon the budget, and we only can allot so many 5s, and they get so much money, blah, blah, blah. And I made up my mind at that moment, no one will ever tell me what I'm worth. No one will ever dictate my salary. No one will ever dictate when I get promoted. None of that. So I already had the entrepreneurial spirit in me, but that just poured gasoline on it. Amen. And it wasn't long before I left and started my own company and all that. But that was like the thing, the push that I needed to say, all right, game on.
Amen. Amen. And I think all of us at certain points in time have to be pushed, or we walk into or stumble in something that we weren't planning, but we make the best out of it, and it turned out to be a great deal. It turned out to be something that God can bless us in, even though, we weren't necessarily thinking about that, like I tell college students all the time. Most of the time they tell them, don't even think about what you want to be, because by the time you get to be a junior, you're going to probably change something, But some kids go in college focused that they know what they're going to do the whole time they're there. And so I think we can all stumble into that dream of what we think we want to do in different ways. And I wish I could have been more focused and direct, but I just kind of stumbled into what I believe God wanted me to do. Because there was no history of preachers in my family. So it wasn't like granddad was a preacher, so I had this anointing on my life because I was a little boy preacher, father, and granddad. No, man, that was never the case. So in my mind, there had to be God to direct me to do this, because it took a lot to stop pursuing that football. Because that was just in my blood. Tom, I see you. Then I want to, and you get ready to read. I want to finish reading his story on that No Casual to just kind of show you how this thing ended when they got accomplished that goal. Tom, go ahead. Did you have your hand out? Okay.
Yeah, we're talking about choices. Okay, I didn't have a choice when I went in the military. The judge gave it to me. He said, you either go to reform school or you go to the military. Now, I wasn't doing anything really wild. I just wasn't going to school, and I was running away from home. So he thought I needed a permanent residence either in the military or the reform school. So I went in the military. And during basic, they give you all these courses or tests to find out where you're best suited. Well, I got all kinds of great scores in contracting, heavy equipment operator, and the lowest score was in administration. I had a 4. The highest you get would be a 9. So you go in this room to be qualified, and they had 3 desks in there. They said, next. I went to this desk, and they said, you're going to be a clerk typist. I said, hey, I can't even spell typewriter. They said, you're going to learn because we're going to send you to Roswell, Mexico, and you're going to get a book and learn yourself. I said, oh, wow. The other 2 desks, one was for police, and the other one was to be a cook. So I think I might have got the best deal there. But going through the military, I got my 2nd stripe, and I couldn't get to the 3rd. And one time I was on CQ, the commander said, if you get a high school education, you get advancement. So I said, okay. So I went and got a GED, got my high school. Next go around, hey, I got promoted 3rd stripe. So then I had trouble getting a staff sergeant, so I started taking college courses. I become a staff sergeant. And that, in admin, that was the highest you could go, because after the Vietnam and Korean War, all the people rifted went into personnel or admin. So I couldn't get no place. They could not transfer me out of admin, cross-train me, until I had 15 years in the military as a staff. I was running base housing here at Eggman, and this guy come in, a tech sergeant, and filled out his card. And I looked at it, I said, you got 5 years in the military and you're already a tech sergeant? And he said, yeah. I said, what field you in? He said, finance. And lo and behold, a couple of days later, the Lord blessed me. They opened it up. I could get out of finance. I put it, or admin. I put in for finance. Went to tech school in Texas, and I made tech sergeant while I was in school. And then a couple years later, I made master. So, and I didn't have any choices except one to get into finance. And that's it. And my dream was, when I was a staff sergeant, how am I going to ever make chief? And I didn't make chief. After I had that problem with that one lieutenant in finance, I went ahead and retired.
Amen.
But God gives you a path. I didn't make any choices to go in the military. But once I was in there, I wanted to do the best I could do.
Amen.
And they made me a supervisor when I had 2 stripes. And there was other 3 stripers working for me.
Amen.
So it's an amazing world.
Amen. Amen. So Andy, go ahead and read it, and then we'll talk a little bit more. I just want to kind of finish this up on page 44, I think it is. Not a casual.
Mhm. In 1953, Tenzin embarked on his 11th expedition to seventh expedition to Everest with a British group led by Colonel John Hunt. By then, he was respected not only as a porter who could carry heavy loads at high altitudes, but also as a mountaineer and full-fledged expedition member, an honor unusual at the time for a shepherd. The year before, he had climbed to the height of 28,250 feet with a Swiss team. Up to then, that was the closest any human being had come to the top of the mountain. Tenzin was also engaged to be the British group's sarder for the trip, the shepherd leader who would hire, organize, and lead the porters for the journey. That was no small task. To hope to get just 2 people from base camp up to the summit, the team brought 10 high-altitude climbers, including a New Zealander named Edmund Hillary. Altogether, the men would require 2.5 tons of equipment and food. Those supplies couldn't be trucked or airlifted to the base of the mountain. They had to be delivered to Kathmandu, and carried on the backs of men and women 180 miles up and down the Himalayan ridges and over rivers crossed by narrow rope and plank bridges to the base camp. Tenzin would have to hire between 200 and 300 people just to get the supplies in the vicinity of the mountain. Supplies needed by the party above the base camp would have to be carried up the mountain by another 40 porters, each a Sherpa with extensive mountain experience. The best third of that team would continue working higher up the mountain, carrying up the 750 pounds of necessary equipment in 30-pound loads. Only Tenzin and 3 other porters would have the strength and skill to go to the high camps near the summit.
Okay? And so you can see that from his experience of watching others, he realized that when he got into a position where he had some authority or in charge, he needed a bigger team. He had seen everybody else try to do it with smaller teams, but now he got the ability to say, okay, you made me the supervisor of the Sherpas and you give me the status of a mountaineer, and now I know what it takes to tackle this. And so I think sometime in life, after you have been in a situation or an organization for so long, you ought to be learning what it would take to take your organization or your group to the next level. You ought to be learning that, hey, I've seen others who tried to come in and do this, and this, and it did not work. But while they was doing it, I was learning because no one gave me an opportunity. But now that I got the opportunity, I shouldn't walk into the job ignorant. I should walk into the job prepared based upon the fact that I've been learning all these years. And so at the end of the story is that him and I think it was the guy Hillary, after going up and the team went up, they ascended to the top of the mountain on page 46. They made it the most of their chance, and on May the 29th, 1953, him and Hillary accomplished what no other human beings ever had. They stood at the summit of Mount Everest, the world's highest peak. But they couldn't have done it alone because the task was too big. And so sometimes the question now comes, why is it so hard for us sometimes to build a team of folk to help us? Let's talk church now. Because you're in Strive, and you see working together on posters around here. Do y'all think that's on working together on the poster just by accident? That little thing that got the 3 circles overlapping and got working together on it? That's talking about team. So it seems like to me, anytime we do something, it ought to be in our spirit, in our bloodline, because that's the way we have been taught, that we always look, who is the team that's going to help me pull this off? And sometimes we got to choose our teammates not based on personality. Because if you choose your teammate based on personality, you're only going to get the folk that you like. And you're going to look over some folk that may be able to help you to tackle Mount Everest, but you're trying to tackle it with the wrong folk. All because you don't see the value of building a team. And so in church, God intended for the church to be a team. That's why he calls it a body. So we have to get into that mindset that anything that we do for him in the kingdom, we ought to think about, how can I work with other folks? I ain't get that one amen on that, Jenny? I thought I'd get a lot of amen right there. Because I know we fight that, man, but you all are organizing tribes for, we could have just been, 600 just running around with nobody but, pastor and all that. But you're on a tribe for a reason. And I would venture to say, some of y'all here may not even know what tribe you're on. Now, that's a two-way street. It may be your tribe fault for not connecting with you, or it could be your fault for not wanting to connect with your tribe members. So when we think down that line and we build those relationships, then when it's time for us to tackle big projects or do big things in the kingdom, it will be a whole lot easier when we got a team. And it would be better when we don't have to spend time cherry picking to put the team together. When you can just go to the people that got the right skill set and say, hey, let's do this, and not have to worry about, oh my God. That makes the team work harder when you are working with the wrong person and you're trying to accomplish something. They may be your friend, but they may not have the skill set that you need to accomplish what you're trying to do. And sometimes I believe the kingdom of God suffers because we don't follow his guidelines when it comes to teamwork. And I think sometimes we don't do that. The team suffer losses in situations where they should have won. So break down. And so we need to take on the same mindset of this Sherpa. Hey, look, man, I know I need 600 folks. I need a whole lot of folks. I ain't going to let my ego get in the way. If I make it to the top of the mountain with this guy, that'll be fine. But if I help somebody else get to the top of the mountain, I'll be happy with that too. Because I've learned some things over these expeditions that I've gone up. And at one time, he didn't think he was going to be the one to go up. He thought the other 2 guys that were with him was going to make it, but they had to come back. And then that's how him and the other guy made it to the top. So he didn't even have that as his priority at the time. As long as his job got done, he didn't even mind if someone else got to the top. Because he realized that they got there on his shoulders. And so what we got to see is that sometimes teamwork may mean is that, hey, on every situation, I may not be the star. I may have to be a supporting role, a cast member, an extra. But I know in the church, some people can't handle supporting. You put their name in lights, they show up for it and everything. You put their name down in the small credit, that show up last after everybody gone. You know, I had to go back and see Panther 2 times because I missed the credits. And that was a whole nother story in the credits. And them credits were so long. I said, man, they got all these people that to pull this movie on all the way. And I wouldn't have never known about White Fox because I left too early. The first time I left at the UN. But I'm not a Marvel man, so I don't know how they build their story. So I guess now knowing White Fox gonna be somebody next time. He wasn't shown at the very end of the movie just to be shown. What's his name, White Wolf? Oh, but he called him Wolf. She called him White Wolf or something like that. Yeah, you get the point. Candace, why you gonna do me like that? She don't want me to be wrong. So my point is that sometimes some people ain't what now? Oh, Lord have mercy. Oh, don't. I don't want to mess up nobody. That's the very end. If you that to that, I didn't mess up nothing. Because half of us in this room walked out before that part even. For that part. I'm helping you. So you get your whole money's worth. Because when I saw it the second time, I saw all those folks getting, I wanted to say, hey, stop. Y'all leaving too early. But I just had to let them walk and somebody else would tell them. So now he made it to the top. Then we talked about the first. He says, what is my dream? And we've asked you to think about that. Then the next question he asks on page 48, he says, who is my team? You know, in some situations in life, you have the opportunity to choose your team. A lot of times when it comes to the kingdom of God, when it comes to people coming to the body, we don't have a choice. It's almost like when you're in a family, you ain't got no choice who your brothers and sisters gonna be. Your mom and dad just decide they're gonna go do what they need to do, and next thing you know, you got a brother or a sister. They didn't even ask you, you just got to deal with it. So it's the same way when people come to the church. Very seldom I go and say, Lord, they just show up. And when they show up, they're in the family, and then now we have to know how to treat them like family so we can all get along. And so, but once they're in the family and they learn their niche and that, then yes, we can place them in position to do certain things, but when it comes to calling people to the kingdom of God, that's God's job. We have to accept whoever he called to the team and then hope that the chemistry and the spirits are going to work together for the overall good of the kingdom. And sometimes that is difficult because in corporate America, when they don't like their team members like that, Jamie, they just give them pink slip. I mean, they look at it, and whatever the reason is, the bottom line ain't right. Okay, 5 of y'all got to go. Or you showed up late too many times, you got to go. One of the toughest things in churches is hard to replace folks. Because nobody wants to seem like the bad guy. They have to fire somebody or replace them. That's why in most churches, not some of the newer churches now maybe, but in most churches, people who end up in a position is almost in there for life. Unless you force them to bring the walls down and let other people in. Because most pastors don't want to go to a person and say, hey, you're still here, still doing good, but guess what? I want a new tribe leader. Without cause, I just want to. Then now, the mindset is, okay, I've been the top dog for 10 years. Now I got to work for somebody that used to be under me, or they may not have but 5 years on their belt. Yeah, but they may bring something to the table. Now, I'm guilty because I've never fired a tribe leader. The only thing I've ever done with tribe leaders is rotate them. And that almost caused an earthquake. I mean, some of y'all remember that. Yeah, some of y'all remember that. I can't believe you don't put me on another tribe. We just changed it. I love Minister Mack. I don't want to pay nobody else's team. Mack is my man. You don't put this pressure over us. Y'all don't remember that, but see, but it should have been, hey, maybe Minister So-and-so going to show you some things that Minister Mack did. Another person. So I only tried that experiment one time. So, but maybe we try it again. Just rotate around. Let different tribes see different people leading them, and they get a different personality, different skill sets, and maybe a different drive. Yes. Let me get your mic, because I know they're recording.
It's green now. Okay. So, Pastor, I guess it's a little different question on what you're asking. But is it possible for those of us who are a part of the congregation, let's say we've been entrenched and doing something for a long period of time, just to be led by the Lord to listen to him and say, you know what, your time is up, and us go to the leader and say, I've seen this gift and this ability in this individual. I believe the Lord is saying it's time for them to take us to another height. As the guy was saying in the book, the shepherd that was leading all the stuff, he said that he wanted to go and he desired to go. He said, but if someone else had to do it in order for them to get to the higher height, then he was willing to allow that to happen, because getting to the top was the goal. So if our goal is to enhance the kingdom, if our goal is to help win souls, to advance the kingdom, we should be willing to push aside our own individual goals and desires. And maybe you asked a question earlier, you said that why don't we do this in church? I can't speak for striving, but I can speak for some of the other locations I've been at. Some people weren't fulfilled in the jobs they had outside, and because they got a little power within the ministry, they're going to hold on to that for dear life because there are nobodies in the office.
Okay. Good. Okay, that's good. That's good. Go ahead. Keisha did Veronica. Drop the mic. So, Veronica. Keisha, go ahead.
Pastor, I know you're going to get this, but a lot of stuff we're talking about now is happening in the next chapter. And it talks about people who generally are the weakest link don't realize that they are the weakest link, because they spend too much time, they say, guarding their turf, saving their positions, and holding on to what they have. So it kind of goes in line with what you're saying. Those are the ones who generally don't even see that they need to give something up. Everybody around them do. Because generally if you see those characteristics where they kind of feel like they got to protect that or guard that, then whatever they're doing, it's almost like as a teacher. You know, they start talking about, well, you're not going to get a raise with this, and they first wanted to take everybody off of kind of grandfathered in to where you just have like, just because you got your job, you're going to keep it. And so you'd have to go where it's paid for performance. If you do a great job and you can move this, then you make more money or whatever the case may be. And I've been doing it for 15 years, and it's not one day, it don't make a difference what they're doing. If I'm doing a great job and doing what I'm supposed to do, and filling my purpose, as you said, it don't matter. So my focus has never been on me guarding that or trying to worry about that. I do my job. So if you feel like you said, you've given somebody a position to do something, and it turned out okay, it may not have worked the best, or it might be some new things that come out, you got to watch people's behavior, because then that determines their motives on why they want to do something.
And you know, and I think all the things that you guys are saying is right on point. I think the hard part is that the mindset in the church is just a little bit different, because, you know, this is the body of Christ, and, you know, you just don't want to be the bad guy. I mean, you just don't want to be the bad guy. So what you hope is that, I know for me, I hope in most cases, this, that's where I am, because I got a pastor's heart, and you don't want to hurt nobody's feeling all the time. You try to find a win-win, and a lot of times you hope and pray that they just come to the realization themselves. Veronica said that ain't working. I see that look on her face. That they come to the realization themselves and say, okay, rather than walk up and say, hey, you know, we have done move some people really is hard. It's hard for me because, again, sometimes, and later on he talks about that, everybody ain't for your team. That's the hard part you got to get used to, because sometimes in a church, when you hurt a person feel like they've been hurt, you really hurt the whole family. Because if that person don't receive what you're doing right, they're going to be gone next week. And then if they leave with the wrong spirit, they will make it look like, man, that church, or they don't love you, they don't do this, they don't show the love of Christ. They treated me like this and just kicked me to the curb. I gave them, 15 years of my life when they first started off, and all of a sudden now, boom. I mean, that's how people do. People talk like that when they just leave on their own. Not when you do something that caused them to, Tanya, I see your hand, and then that's just.
Yeah, Pastor, I think it's sort of catch-22 because, the church, and, I've seen it at work with, rotating the supervisors under me around and stuff like that. Because when you don't move those people or address those people, you end up hurting. Yeah. So you leave them there because you're trying to find a win-win or want them to realize it. But the people under them become disenfranchised and uncommitted and all of that stuff. And sometimes by the time you move them, it's sort of like, it's too late. So that particular function has just fallen, apart. So it's catch-22 because you don't want to, just slam their feelings. But sometimes for the whole picture or the real vision of the team. You always got to go back to the vision of the team, and that person might be, a stumbling block in the team that's causing more damage than the confrontation would cause.
Yeah.
Amen.
You should counsel that person. You
Go
really
ahead.
should, because I deal with what Tanya deals with at work all the time with teams and project management and all that. And if you have someone that is so tearing up that team, upsetting everyone on that team because they can't relay the vision or the mission of that particular project, it causes a whole problem and you have to start over from scratch. But what you have to try to learn how to do, Pastor, is basically calling that person in and having a one-on-one conversation, and you have to be honest. Because the truth of the matter is you're doing a disservice to that person when you're not honest to them to tell them who they are. Because sometimes people need to be told to their face, look, we're having issues and this is why. But you can do it in the right tone, but at the same time, you have to tell the truth to adults, because they'll be walking around like they don't know what's wrong because they think everything is okay and they're doing fine, but the rest of the team is suffering. And the project is not going to get done, and when it gets done, it probably won't be done appropriately and right. So you'll have all these mishaps, all these issues, all this disgruntledness, motivation going down the tubes. You got people coming to you constantly complaining because your team lead that you assigned over there got issues. So one rageaholic in one team can destroy the whole atmosphere. So you have to have that one-on-one relationship with your team leads and let them know. And that's what we have to do as managers all the time, because stuff like this happens in the real world, and I'm quite sure it's here. But the honesty part of being honest to a human being is very, very important, because they may be destroying another team somewhere else and don't know it because of their personality or whatever. They don't know. And they have to be told. Kindly.
Yeah, Tanya asked something else. Y'all just listening. It's good.
Yeah, she just reminded me of something I read, and I can't remember the source, but it was saying that in the workplace, people don't necessarily always leave jobs, they leave supervisors. And so when you watch, different, like I have 5 offices, and you watch, like 3 people over here ask if they could move over there. Like, hey, it's something wrong with going on in there. So in church, it is. You describe it more like people, getting with their friends or whatever. But sometimes it is that different dynamic of people, they're leaving a, quote, supervisor or leader who they don't feel is, effective in the team for whatever reason.
Okay. Excellent points. Saw a hand, Anderson.
To get back to what you were saying, when you said sometimes people hold on to the power because they don't have it at their jobs, I thought about that kind of in the reverse, whereas sometimes when you are in control of a lot of stuff at work, when you get to church, you're kind of like, well, all week I kind of call shots and I have to make stuff happen. So when I get here, I don't really want to do that. And so it takes your leader to know, I know you do leadership stuff Monday to Friday. You can put a little leadership in on Sunday or on Saturday or here because this is what you do at work. But if not inspired to do that, I think people might just be like, well, I do that all week, so when I come here, I don't want to do that in that way. And then two, I find it hard to believe that you would have trouble firing people. Remember, any misrepresentation of the truth in word or deed is a lie. We used to have to write that when we lied, okay? But because he's always been very direct about, look, you do school, you don't bring me nothing less than a B. This one, she not doing school, she can get a C because she can sing and she writes poetry. Like, so he's always been very direct in that. So I find it hard that you can't fire people. And then lastly, when you talk about not addressing the problem, one of the things in my counseling classes we talk about is like the therapeutic relationship in a group. And one of the things is if you have a person that's messing up the group, you have to, as the leader of that group, at some point directly let them know what they're doing and how the other people can't function if they continue to do that. And then sometimes you have to go as far to uninvite them from the group in order for everybody else to continue to function in that therapeutic relationship. So just those things.
Therapeutic relationship. That's what we're trying to get to here in the church. We got to get some therapy. So, does that mean we need some therapy here? Some therapy. Effectively. Okay.
I like that word.
I'm getting education right here. Okay, so now look at this. This is what he says when he started talking about challenges. On page 49, he says, the leader got to focus on the team and not so much on the dream, because sometimes the point he's trying to make is that if you get so caught up in just trying to achieve your dream, then you would take advantage of other people just to get there. You won't care about the people. It would become all about you, and you would do whatever it takes to accomplish that, even if you got to walk on top of people, step on people, whatever it takes. So he says, stay on the team, because if you get the right team and you focus on that, then the dream will fall in place. So then he started to give some types of challenges, and we can talk. I'll just read them real quick. But and some of these kind of I saw can be fitted to the church, and some of them don't. But I'll read them. He says, now, if it's a new challenge, you need a creative team. Do you know what that means, Keisha? I gotta know what it means. I gotta know it. But others gotta know. You gotta. Okay. But this is a new challenge. A creative team. So all these creative minds are sitting here wondering, when am I going to be allowed to use my creativity? I'm in a church and they stifling my creativity. I got all these wonderful creative ideas, and I ain't got no problem. But do they fit?
But Pastor, you are a person who is like this because of your military background. Everything is like work, and we get that, and it does take that to get something to get finished. But you've got to start with the creativity. And sometimes people who are extremely creative, you can pull their toenails out trying to get them to lick stamps and do the other part. So you got to know how all of that fits together. So we're not being disrespectful to the ones who are so loyal, committed to break down all that stuff. But you're not giving. You got to make room for the creativity. So we're not trying to push anybody out. We're just saying let's make room for that.
So if it's a new challenge, we need creative teams. Need creative thinkers, people that can, nowadays, at 64, I probably need a whole lot of creativity around me now. Because I'm set. I'm set in so many ways. That's just the reality. I'm set. So I don't wake up in the morning trying to find the newest way to do something. If my old way is working for me, I ain't finna break it just to be creative. Now, I know, Jamie, this is a cardinal sin, but look, I'm going to tell you something about me. I still write all my sermons out. Now look, and this is where I know to those people who are creative and believe in efficiency and, the shortcut to get there, don't think this is sinful. Most of my sermons are in series. And if any of you listen to me, the first 10 minutes of my sermon is normally a review of last week. Creativity say at least you ought to type the review so every week you don't have to rewrite it. So every week, that opening, if I'm doing 10 sermon series with 10, I rewrite that whole opening all over again. When I could just go to the copier, make a copy of it, cut it, paste it, and start at the new point.
But
That ain't creative?
No, that has nothing to do with that. Yeah.
Oh, well, I thought being creative was cutting and pasting.
No.
So maybe I don't know what
it's
creativity is.
what you're doing is called cognitive skills. So there are cognition. When you write cognitively, you think about your process. That has nothing to do with. We want you to write. We want all the kids to write. We want everybody to write. That's how your comprehension increases.
Y'all passed the dumb of the rock. I thought I was on to something. And I'm all in another ballpark. So my cognitive skills are enhanced because they've been working for me for all these years, so that's why oh my God. Good point. So now when we think about that and striving, so am I hearing that you think that we are not creative enough in doing something that we do? I'm just asking. You don't want to step on nobody's toes. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. Okay. He says that there's a controversial challenge. You need a united team. In other words, when you're going to take on something that's controversial, you need to make sure people on the same sheet of music. If it's a changing challenge, you need a fast and flexible team. If it's an unpleasant challenge, you need a motivated team. And I think that's a lot of times the hardest thing to get us here striving to get motivated to do some of the unpleasant things. For a lot of us, and they've made it known, nursing home is unpleasant. If it is, it's unpleasant. So if it's unpleasant, then a person will have to be really motivated to go and do that when they see it as something that is unpleasant. Or anything that we have to do as leaders or as members of the church that we're assigned to do that's unpleasant, if you're not motivated to do it, chances are you won't do it. And so sometimes we do have to take on unpleasant things in order for the team to be successful, but we got to say, okay, now we got to be motivated in order to get it done. Or find people that want to do it. Yeah, now that's another way to look. There's people that we, and that's what we're trying to do now. Trying to find those people that say, hey, I got a passion for this aspect of ministry. I got a passion for that. So therefore now that becomes your baby, and then now you grow that and make it something special. Okay. Now, the other thing he says here is that for a diversified challenge, you need a complementary team. Okay? Exactly. For a long-term challenge, you need a determined team. And then for an ever-sized challenge, he said you need an experienced team. When you're going to take on certain things big, sometimes you do need folks that got experience. You just can't go in with someone who's never done it before. And so I think sometimes here in striving, we do get caught in the fact that a lot of times people have experienced certain things over the years, and you kind of lean on them because they've kind of seen. Don't mean it's going to come out that way, but this is what I want to share with the new people, is that a lot of times when you come to me and we're talking about it, I am not trying to be a vision killer when you want to do something. I just want you to say, okay, hey, look, here's all the things you need to consider before you start this. Because a lot of things that you want to do is not brand new. You know, you're not recreating something or creating something that's brand new. So what I want to share with you is that, hey, look out for this pitfall. Look at this in 3D, because if you just look at it in one dimension, you're not looking at it but from your little slice of the pie, when I'm trying to look at it from the whole big pie. So I'm trying to think on behalf, okay, if you do this way, this segment of the church is going to say great, great, great. But this segment of the church may have a hard time figuring out why we did that. So we got to figure out how do we bridge that so we can still pull off what you're trying to do, but we got to make sure that this segment come along with us, because if not, we're going to have a divided team. You're going to be pulling something and ain't nobody going to be behind you, and you're going to want to know, well, why it's not going the way I thought, because we didn't sit down and play this thing out in 3D. So what I want to share with anybody when you come to me, try to think that thing out all the way through in 3D, and bigger than just what you're trying to do, have the whole layout of Strive and say, how is what I'm about to do going to impact children's church? It's going to impact, the choir or the dancer, or it's going to impact the maintenance guy, because a lot of times we do things, we often always forget what impact it's going to have on child. We just let's do it and not realizing, okay, we didn't think this thing all the way through. This is going to take more than one person to do this. We need to get a team of folks to do it. And so I think that as we go through this book, I'm going to be trying to reveal some things to you that tie into how we do things here based upon some of the things that we learn out of the book. Now, this book, I cut my teeth years ago on John Michael. So we do a lot of things based upon some of the things I learned from his other books. And so I want to just make a plug for him right now. I would advise all of you, if you've never read it, if you're still in that age where you need to read a book, he's got one book out that always stick in my heart. It's called A 360-Degree Leader. That's probably, to me, one of the best books he's written, because it tells you how to lead upward, how to lead downward, and how to lead laterally. And I thought that was just an outstanding book, second to probably these teamwork books. But that was a great book, and I encourage any one of you who are still in organizations where you can grow, or wherever level you're at. If you're at the bottom of the organization, you need to know how to lead from the bottom. What do you need to do to influence the people above you? Even though you're not the final decision maker, you can have influence. And then if you're in the middle, how do you relate to your other peers at the middle tier? As well as downward or upward, and if you're at the top, how do you relate downward to all three in all two areas? So it's an outstanding book. So now, when we look at this, he goes on and how to grow a team. Number one, he says, you got to develop the team members. Now, that's why we try to train here, Strive. And that training that we try to put our members through is designed to develop them to do some of the things that they're going to be doing here in the ministry, or they're going to be doing in the kingdom of God, or develop them to be a better Christian. All this is about developing you so that you can grow to the fullness of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And so sometimes, if you're coming out of a situation where people did not expect that or develop you, and they just kind of preached to you but never taught you and never had lessons set aside to develop you, even in the Baptist church, we used to have BTUs on Sunday evening where you go back to get developed. All the things that you didn't get on a Sunday morning sermon, you got that through development. So all these things that we do is really designed to develop. Now, are some of them too long at times? Have been too long? Yes, but we've cut them down. But the intent is not to make life miserable for you. The intent is to develop you so that you will be a better person in the kingdom of God. Yes, sir.
Pastor, in regards to development of teams, I hear you saying that we have the classes and the things set up to develop individuals. But when I was reading through this, I was looking at it from the perspective of church, but also for work. I've been challenged to develop individuals, not just the team collectively, because each person that I have underneath me has unique challenges or unique deficiencies that I have to, mold and grow within them to help make them a more effective team member. So within the body, within Striving, I don't know, maybe that's the purpose of the tribes, so that the tribe leaders are there to help link with people and to grow and develop those individuals who are part of the tribes, or is that the one of the goals of the tribes as well?
It's all connected to the training and development of the leaders, as well as build that relationship with the membership of the church. So it's kind of designed so that it will allow everyone to connect to some degree with the body. And the tribes came about all because of the fact that as the ministry started to grow and we could no longer do things in one person's house, this, that, and other. We just said, okay, let's just kind of break the church up into teams at first they were called, and later they would evolve to tribes. But they're designed to, to assist in the development of the membership.
And so from that perspective of it growing and developing folks, as far as, helping people to see where the deficiencies are, you were talking about John Maxwell and the 360-degree leader. They're still pushing that now in active duty now. They're trying to push that for us. And to speak to the earlier issue about someone who may be above you who's not doing what they're supposed to do, I've been taught and trained to receive it, but also to give feedback if my leader is ineffective. So I've been told you can't go up there and bark at people. You have to identify clear and specific items and areas of failure and identify to them this area needs improvement. If we continue down this path, we are going to fail at our objective. So can you please adjust course, or if not adjust course, adjust me so that I can help us achieve our objective. But that way you don't insult the leader, but you also give them a notice that there's something wrong and that something needs to be corrected. Because every time, if we're expecting, it's just me speaking, if we're expecting you as the senior leader to have to adjust every single thing that's wrong, you're not going to have time to develop, to hear from Lord, and how to help us grow as a ministry. We have to be able to help in our own area of leadership and lead from the bottom if that need be.
Amen. And that's a good point. From leading from the bottom, someone coming in who's only been in striving 6 months or 8 months, do they feel like after they've gone through the process, and can they come to someone who's been here 10 years and say, hey, this is something I think that you can do better? They should be able to. Now, would that be received? I would hope so. But a lot of times, I think that a mechanism in a lot of people, especially even in myself sometimes, when people come, if you don't receive constructive criticism in the right way, the first thing we do, and I know I'm guilty, is I'm going to defend striving. I get in defensive mode until you can show me clearly I'm going to be defending. But now if we talk long and you can show me the error or something, I say, okay, yeah, I got it. But that's just a natural response for me, is to get in defense. And that may be something I need to be mindful. Okay, don't be defensive, just listen to the whole argument, and then, okay, after you listen to it, then if there's nothing to be refuted, then maybe that's a good point. And maybe we need to. I got feedback from Candace and others that Fun Fest was not a good name for our little event we were going to have. In staff meeting, I thought we had came up with some great Fun Fest, so we're going to have some fun that night. And the people said, Joe or somebody, Joe don't never say nothing. Fun Fest sounds kind of childish. Man, it makes sense to pastor. We just going to have fun. He said, but when they hear people hear fun. And somebody said, okay, let's call it Striving Spring Fling. Well, pastor said, man, fling. What we going to do at the fling? And Beth said, well, the Catholic Church, they call theirs St. Mary's Spring Fling. And Joe says, I don't really think about church when I hear the word fling. It got a whole different meaning to me. And then Kim Wonder said, hey, what about soiree or soiree or whatever that word is? Soiree. Okay, so y'all know that wasn't my creativity. Veronica said, what is a soiree? And then so we looked up soiree. I said, it's an evening gathering. I said, yeah. So now light comes on for me, and I say, hey, we can make that 3 S's, just like triple X. We can have Striving Spring Soiree. So when I heard that, my, Fun Fest got kicked to the curb. And so what I'm trying to get to is that you're right. When it comes to being a development team, we got to be willing to be developed, even if we're leaders, when people can come to us with ideas that may make the team better. You know, we don't have to come up with everything that is done. All we got to do is be open to others who can come and bring creative ways or ideas to make the team better and then implement those things. Then the next thing you say, you got to know how to add key team members. And we're always trying to add people to different departments in the church or team members. But sometimes people got to want to come in to be added. But you always want to increase the numbers in your department, because the bigger your team is, the better chance you have of succeeding at what you do. So all teams need to add players. Then this one we talked about, sometimes you have to change the leadership. And like I said, here, most of the key leaders that have been here for years, even some of those who left, they didn't leave because Pastor have never run off anybody. Everybody done left striving. Either God told them to leave or they left on their own free will. I mean, never run off anybody. But at the same time, I am set with certain people, and this is, I can be, loyal to me is a lot to me. A lot. So when I feel like people are loyal to me, I don't just change them out just to feel good, say I want to put somebody new. And I don't know if they loyal or not. So to me, loyalty means a lot. And sometimes, I don't want people to be loyal to me to a fault, but at the same time, I need to know that I can trust them, and I need to know that they got the best interest of the kingdom of God in their heart and the ministry in their heart. Now, have everybody ever worked for me been the lawyers of people? No. But because they weren't, I ain't fired. They left for whatever reason. So, it's tough. It's tough. It's tough for me. Like Candace said, she don't think I'm like, it's just tough. It's tough. Jamie, go ahead.
Is loyalty more important than skill?
Yeah, probably to me, yeah, right now. If I like a person and they loyal and I get along with them, then I can accept a weaker skill set. But I'd rather have a loyal person than to have an Absalom sitting at the gate stealing the whole team.
Would that work in football? You have somebody that has little to no skill, but they're very loyal. Would they be your starting quarterback? Would they be the people that are making it happen on the field? But they're loyal though. They're at every practice. They show up. They suited. They booted. They ready to go, but no skill.
I don't think that the question is sitting around having no skill. The people that I'm loyal to,
low skill.
Low skill.
But we serve a God who can exponentially increase that low-skilled member if they're faithful to Him.
Amen. And I believe that if a person realizes that they are in that low skill and they're willing to work to try to improve, I think there's room for just like a player trying to improve. I tell you what, the other side of that coin is that I've coached guys who are superstars. I mean, flat out superstars that don't need to practice. They just watch the film and they can pick up everything because they done played a little college ball. And so they're the guys who feel like, hey, I don't need to come to practice because just get me there on Thursday. And when we go through the walkthrough, I can check my man. I'm already studied it, da-da-da-da. And on that side of the coin, you have to say to them, okay, guys, look, if you don't come to practice, you ain't going to play. Because you can't, it's an exchange. You can't allow the superstars to just do what they want to do because they can produce without practice, because that kills the team too. When the other players who get out there and run the 40s and don't loaf and all that, they try hard. But even in football, And we had some good teams. We never had a losing season. We always made it to the playoffs and all that. I've never really had to just cut players. You know, even if the guy put out a little bit of effort in something, I would find a place for him on the special team. He showed up for practice. You know, you can find something. Put him on special team. Put three superstars around him, because you know you can't mess nothing up. They're gonna cover for him to give him some opportunity. Or you have some people that just clean up players. You know, when the game is out of control, they know, hey, I ain't gonna get in unless we win in big, and it's 3 minutes left. I ain't getting no TikTok. But they stayed with the team. They love that team environment, and they got in. But that's a good question, and that's tough.
So like, let's say you have a loyal quarterback. They've been with you, but they just don't complete passes as often as you would like to win the championship. And then you have some rookies that are coming on the team that got skill, and they're willing to go to practice. They're willing to do all the things you want to do. Would you have the loyal veteran quarterback sit down for a minute and let the new rookie show you what they can do and then be able to assess accordingly? Or does the loyalty just say, oh, that's the quarterback, so you going to be a field goal punter?
That's a good question. And that's a real life scenario that happened on the team. You're right. Because in Germany, you know, normally we was there for 3 or 4 years. And so when a player come in and they start playing in their first year, you know they're going to play with you for 3 years until their assignment up. But there are other guys that come in maybe that player's second year, and yes, we've had to change quarterbacks in the middle of a guy's 2-year tour. I mean a 4-year tour. Because this guy, other guy was that much better, and it was tough benching him. Yes, but we had to do it in order for the team to win. You had to do it.
So how about here at Striving? I'm just something to think about. I'm not thinking of anybody in particular. I'm just talking about because you mentioned the idea that loyalty was very important to you. So I was just curious to how loyalty compared to skill. If one was more valuable than the other, or just to get your thoughts on it.
I would like to believe that if I thought that a person's skill set was going to cause the ministry to go under, then yes, I think that would be an easy decision for that. But if it's something that the team can still perform and get things and do what God called us to do, then I can accept a guy that's a little less talented, but he got loyalty over someone who may be a superstar, but they're not loyal. Yes, ma'am. Ms. Allen, and we got to go. It's 7:30. I'm sorry. And we got food over there tonight, too, so y'all make sure y'all don't leave without it. I mean, they got... Okay. She said loyalty is everything, and loyalty is high. There's 2 things that is up there high, loyalty and integrity. They kind of run neck and neck with each other when you're on this. Okay, good discussion tonight. We need to go ahead and let's stand up get ready for a good conversation. We'll pick it up next week. Good question, man. Okay, food